it's Andre Ferdinands here, TopStocks Managing Director. Thank you for watching the video. You'll notice I have sitting beside me a guest, Mark. Welcome. For those of you that don't know, Mark is the Executive Chairman of Tangiers Petroleum, and I met Mark the other day, and Mark has agreed to come and talk to myself and the TopStocks members. So welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Andre, and thank you all TopStocks members. We're delighted to have the opportunity to come here today and tell the Tangiers story.
Thank you. So, members, thank you for those that have sent questions through. I've done my best to try and incorporate your questions into what I'm going to talk to Mark about today. There'll be a series of 3 interviews. This interview will predominantly be about Mark, about Tangiers, about the Tangiers story. Then next week we'll come back and we'll talk about the North African Morocco assets. And then the week after that we'll talk about the Australian assets. So if that's all right, Mark,
Be delighted to in that order.
So, Mark, tell me and tell our members about yourself first.
Sure. My role obviously is Executive Chairman of Tangiers. I was appointed to the board about 18 months ago, and with the principal reason of trying to expedite the development of the assets, truly great assets that we have in this particular company. So my background's resources, hard rock and oil and gas. Born and bred in Perth and live in Perth, which is a mining town. So I spent a lot of time in the investment banking, corporate finance and stockbroking industries, where I've worked with many companies like Tangiers, helping them build up their asset base, developing their strategy, financing them, taking them into the next stage. And spent most of my life working on M&A opportunities in this industry. So that sort of skill base sort of suited Tangiers and what its objectives were very well.
Okay. And Tangiers has had a long history. I think I remember it back when it was called DVM, and now, of course, you're TPT on the Australian Stock Exchange. Help myself and my listeners understand, what is it that Tangiers, what industry is it in? Is it just simply energy, or is it more complicated than that?
Sure.
Simply that?
So the company itself has had a history of some 20 years, but probably it's only the last 2 or 3 years that's of particularly relevance today in terms of the asset profile that it's got. So about 2.5 years ago, Tangiers obtained an interest in 2 very interesting assets. One's in Morocco, and I'm going to talk a lot about Morocco because there's not a lot of great understanding about Morocco. The other asset's in Australia. And so its primary focus in those last couple of years is to develop those assets further, to understand them, understand the intrinsic value in those assets, and start to exploit that value as well. So we are an oil and gas exploration company, and in the case of these 2 assets, we've got substantial exposure to blue sky.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that blue sky for a moment. Yeah. What is it about Tangiers that my members should stand up and listen? Take note. Not only my members, but there'll be people watching this all around Australia, potential investors, maybe potential joint venture or farming partners as well. We'll talk about that next week. And also around the world, the people watching this too. Why should they, take note here of what Tangiers is doing or what Tangiers has? Okay.
Look, it might help if I talk a little bit about our business philosophy and our strategy. There's many oil and gas companies in Australia in the micro-cap sector. Many of them have small interests in small assets in difficult places, or they have small levels of production in various countries looking to get access to blue sky. And our philosophy as a company is really to draw upon the skills of the executive management team, and I'll talk you through some of our team in a moment, but to draw upon their skills to identify big blue sky opportunities in countries that we think have excellent fiscal regimes, great technical foundations in terms of the oil and gas opportunity, and to make sure that we've got a large equity position. Okay. And that gives us the sort of leverage that very few small micro-caps can often get globally, not just in Australia. And I think that's why we've got attention both here and in the UK and in other places that our investors sit.
Okay. My own research suggests that you've got those blue sky opportunities.
We do. We do.
And we'll talk
so we're not looking for these opportunities. We have them. We're blessed to have them at this point in time.
Okay, Mark, you talked about the team earlier. Let's talk about your team now in a little bit more detail. Are you able to take our members through who you have
Sure.
and the experience?
Yeah, indeed. So I joined 18 months ago, as I said, and with the explicit imprimatur to actually develop the assets further and to make sure we had the right people on board to do that. So the very first person that I brought on board, and he joined the board with me, was a gentleman called Brent Villamoret. Brent is a 30-plus year industry experienced person, American-born originally, worked throughout the world, and in fact transferred to Australia about 16 years ago with what was then in Australia a little-known independent called Apache Corporation, a Houston-based organisation. And they bought what was a small sort of maybe tied asset in Australia, and they've used that, leveraged that to grow a substantial asset base here. It's worth about a quarter of the global operation now. It's a $40 billion market cap company. And Brent came across in the early stages. He is a reservoir engineer, so he was involved in drilling wells, developing projects, and assessing projects to buy and or to sell over that period in time. So he's one of those guys who's been there and done that. And instead of returning back to the US after his assignment had finished some 14 years later, he decided to stay in Perth, and I had the good fortune to meet and know Brent through, I had a role consulting to Apache, and we were looking for opportunities that might meet and suit his skill base. And of the hundreds of opportunities that we assessed, we both agreed that this was the best opportunity we'd ever seen in a small micro-cap company. Okay. So Brent joined the board with me late 2010. And our next senior hire was Margaret Hildick-Pytte. Margaret, not a dissimilar background to Brent, American-born, worked most of her career with Chevron throughout the world, North and South America, Africa, and Australasia as well. She moved also to Australia on a transfer, and the last few years she worked with Inpex. And soon after she finished that particular assignment, she came on board and joined Tangiers. And so I'm blessed that I have two people who could work in any large organisation throughout the world, but saw the unique opportunity that Tangiers provided to them technically, and they really look forward to the opportunity to develop a company together. And so I think that's a key element to Tangiers and its success.
Okay, so an international team.
In an international team, in an international company, albeit a small one.
Sure. Now, Brent, if I heard you correctly, Brent, you mentioned Apache. Okay, so Apache, or the Australian component, he took from 40 million.
Well, he was one of the team, obviously, but I mean their assets in Australia, I believe, are about a quarter of the global operation now. So it's a $40 billion company.
40 billion.
And Australia is a significant portion of that. So he had all of that hands-on experience with the team building an asset base over there. And if we had even a fraction of that success here, then we'd be delighted.
Wonderful. Okay, let's talk about Tangiers now going forward. Remember, we're going to be talking about more specifically Morocco and Northern Territory. We've talked about your team. We talked about what your team have been able to accomplish. What do you need to do when you go to work every morning now, and your team, to ensure that Tangiers is successful going forward?
Okay. So this is a little bit about our business plan and our strategy. So we're a company that doesn't believe in paying a lot of money for blue sky exploration, because microcap juniors can't do that. There's no leverage for their shareholders in doing that. We also don't believe, as a lot of the microcap oil and gas companies do, in going out and buying 20 barrels of production or 50 barrels of production and then leveraging that into getting blue sky opportunities. What our skill base is identifying these blue sky opportunities. So what we do, and it's what we've done with our existing assets, is we bid work programs. We did that in Morocco, and we also did that in Australia as well. So we don't have to pay money up front, but we do have to commit to expenditures and then progressively work through a work program. But as we do that, we add value to the assets all the way along. And key in point are the two opportunities that we have right now, where we've spent modest amounts of money developing those opportunities to a point now where they have significant value and will continue to demonstrate even further value in the future. So for us right now, we've developed two sets of assets to a point where it's time to farm those assets out. We have two separate farm out processes, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the next couple of weeks. We will farm out those particular opportunities, and we'll progress with the drilling programs and the future exploration programs with both of those, hopefully have exploration success and be able to develop those projects. And in the meanwhile, we sit and think about other opportunities. And so we continually assess other opportunities that are similar around the world, where we can bid work programs in frontiers where there's great opportunities, great fiscal regimes, and attractive oil and gas economics, basically. So that's what we do every day.
Okay. Mark, back in September last year, I think I looked at the TPT chart before you arrived. You're up at 88 cents. Obviously, we've had some global downturn across the world since then, and naturally TPT would expect us to come down with it. Put that aside for the moment. Valuation. How do you value TPT at any point in time?
Sure. Well, I don't know that I can give price guidance, but I can certainly give you some thoughts around where our share price sits and perhaps what people might think of the valuation of our company at this point in time. I suppose the first thing I would say is that where we sit today at about 45 to 48 cents, we're probably 18 months ago we were trading at about 7 cents, so we're probably a 600 or 700% appreciation over an 18-month period. Now, we're perhaps not at our top, but that's not a bad effort in what's been a pretty tough 18 months. So we're kind of okay with where we sit, I suppose. But obviously we always like to see our share price move upwards. Since September, when we had those highs of 88 cents, I think that there's been considerable value added to the company. We came out with a CPR on our Nova asset, which we'll talk a little bit about in the coming couple of weeks. We've also come out with a very significant opportunity in the Milligan span, which we're looking forward to talking about in week 3. And I think these opportunities perhaps double or triple the value of what our company was back in September. So whatever someone thought it might have been worth then, I think it's worth considerably more today. But of course, you know, the share market takes its own turn from time to time, and we've been hit like most companies with the global financial crisis that we're experiencing at the moment.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, recently, when I say recently, in the last few months, I think Old Park Lane came out with an evaluation. Are you able to help our members understand that evaluation a bit better?
Sure. There's in fact 3 brokers in the UK that cover our company. 2 of those have valuation metrics within their reports, including Old Park Lane, which has a valuation and a price target. And Shore Capital also has a valuation metric within their research report as well. So if you were to look at, for example, the Old Park Lane report, they have a current price target of $2.40 per share, and that's split between Asaka, Trident TMA, the Moroccan assets, about $1.40 per share, and then they attribute about 50 cents to our Milligan span asset, and then about another 50 cents to our Nova asset. So it's about $2.40 valuation there, and Shore Capital had their own valuation, which is not too dissimilar from those particular numbers. So that gives you some idea of what others think the value of our company is today. And I will say, when you look through those valuations, and I think that they're very well supported, you can see that they've not attributed any value to about half our asset base at this point in time as well.
Okay,
so there's considerable upside there.
Okay, just in summary, members, if you didn't pick up on that, what I picked up on was that $2.40 by Old Park Lane, and that's looking at only around 50% of the Tangiers assets in both Morocco and Northern Territory WA.
That's right.
Okay, good. So, Mark, where to from here? We're going to talk about Morocco and Northern Territory WA. Thank you for coming back, by the way, and doing that with us.
My pleasure.
In the next week, though, where can my members go for more information so they can send me some questions to ask you next week?
Well, look, the very, very best place is our website, which is quite up to date. It gives details on the majority of our projects. It also provides analyst reports and other information as well. So if you trawl through that website, you can actually find a lot of the information that you might find of interest, including some of our most recent presentations as well.
Okay. Well, members, there you have it. Please check out Tangiers' website. Website details will be at the bottom of this post or in this video. I'd like to thank Mark Ceglinski for joining us, and I look forward to meeting Mark again in a week's time. And don't forget to shoot me some questions. If you'd like specific questions that you would like me to ask Mark, shoot them through. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Andre.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.